Now, a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent a message to Jesus, "Lord, he whom you love is ill." But when Jesus heard it, he said, "This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Accordingly, though Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, after heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea again." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews were just now trying to stone you, and you are going there again?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Those who walk during the day do not stumble, because they see the light of the world. But those who walk at night stumble, because the light is not in them." After saying this, he told them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to awaken him." The disciples said to him, "Lord, if he's fallen asleep, he will be all right." Jesus, however, had been speaking about Lazarus' death, but they thought that he was referring merely to sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead. For your sake, I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe, but let us go to him." Thomas, who was called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us go then, that we may die with him." When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus has already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, some 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, while Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world." And when she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." And when Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to Jesus. Now Jesus had not yet come into the village and was still in the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw Mary get up quickly and go out. They followed her because they thought she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of a blind man have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. There was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said, "Lord, there already is a stench because he's been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. And Jesus looked upward and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I know that you always heard me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that many will believe that you sent me." And when he said this, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with cloths, and his face wrapped in linen. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him, let him go." Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what Jesus did, believed in him. The Gospel of the Lord. In a wonderfully droll book, The Undertaking, Life Studies from the Dismal Trade, funeral director turned author Thomas Lynch wrote, "The dead were unremarkable in ways that were hard to imagine. This is the central fact of my business, that there is nothing, once you are dead, that can be done to you or for you or with you that will do you any good or any harm. The living have to live with it. You don't." Lynch says, once you're dead, put your feet up, call it a day, and let the husband or the missus or the kids or the sibling decide whether you were buried or burned or blown out of a cannon or left to dry out in a ditch somewhere. It's not your day. Give it a rest, I say. If there were ever three people who could not give it a rest, it was Martha and Mary and Jesus. Can you imagine the disappointment of Mary and Martha after sending word to Jesus that his friend Lazarus was gravely ill, and discovering that he tarried until it was way too late? Of course you can. We all can. We have been right there. When life is overwhelming us and we pray for a little help, we know how Mary and Martha felt when it didn't come. When a marriage or relationship doesn't work out, or a job takes such a turn for the worse that we feel that there is no choice but to leave. Or those darkest of dark days when, like Mary and Martha, we have prayed for the healing of someone we cherish, and we discover that Jesus doesn't seem to be coming in time. Or despite all our prayers, what we are most afraid of happening happens. Those are tough times. They may even mean the death of our faith. Times when we can turn toward God or away from God in anger and disgust. Martha can see no life in this situation at all. When she first approaches Jesus, she is angry. But then she gets to talking theology.